Hello, my name is Brant Hunt, and my channel is Discerning What is True. And I hope everyone is doing well today. The weather was a little bit rainy here, a little bit of rain, about a quarter of an inch, and then it became quite nice. That is, warmed up a little bit, although nowhere near as nice as it was yesterday. But I'll take it. So I am sharing this information on what I call YouTube and also on Odyssey on my channel, Discerning What is True. And this title of this particular book is Murder by Injection. That is chapter 9. And we're going to get into this book right now. Hope everyone will have ears to hear and eyes to see. Again, this is by Eustace Mullins, which is someone I deeply respect. I don't agree with everything he says, but I don't know many people who basically have gotten it pretty much close to being right. The chapter 9 chapter is called The Drug Trust. In 1987, that is, when this book I think was written, the 18th largest drug firms were ranked as follows. Merck, that is a United States drug company, had $4.2 billion in sales. The next company was called Glasgow Holdings, that is, out of the United Kingdom, was $3.4 billion. These are all billions, folks, not millions, billions. 3 was the Hoffmann LaRoche company out of Switzerland at 3.1 billion. The next company was number 4, with its being SmithKline Beecham. Actually, my mom worked for them, but not for the drug particular area of theirs. Their sales for 1987 was $2.8 billion. The number 5 was Ciba Geiger from Switzerland again, from 2.7 billion. I meant to say that SmithKline merged with Beecham. Beecham was which was a British company also, merged with SmithKline, which was also a drug company. The 6th largest was Pfizer, with a $2.5 billion. But in actually Standard & Poor's gives it a sales of almost $4 billion. I don't know why that is, but anyway, they shared this information, so I'm just sharing it with you. Another country, the number 7 largest company, and that is drug company, is called Hochstet, Hoechstat from Germany at $2.5 billion. The next company was American Home Products from the United States at $2.4 billion. I don't know if that company still exists. I wonder if it's been bought out. Just what's happening, just thinking in my mind here. The number 9 largest drug company was Lilly at $2.3 billion. The next company was Upjohn, which was at $2 billion. The number 11 company was Squibb at $2 billion also. And then you had Johnson & Johnson at number 12 at $1.9 billion. And then there's the 13th largest drug company was Sandoz, which is out of Switzerland, also at $1.8 billion. They once had a plant here in the United States. Not that I called on them as a salesman, located in the southern part of South Carolina. That plant has now been bought out by a company called Claritin. I don't think Sandoz actually has a plant here in America anymore, but I don't know for sure. But that's just what I recall. The 14th largest drug company was Bristol Myers in the United States, was $1.6 billion. And then they have this another group here, which is the Beecham Group, which I assume is to do with SmithKline Beecham, was at $1.4 billion. The 16th largest was Bayer, that is AG Bayer, out of Germany at $1.4 billion. And the number 17th company was Syntex, a United States company, at $1.1 billion. And the 18th largest company was Warner Lambert at $1.1 billion also. Again, this was 1987, so this is just to give you an idea. And more people now take drugs, I think, than ever have, which is really a sad situation. This is why people's health begins to get worse and worse also. Drugs are basically a temporary fix. It doesn't solve the problem. So we continue on with our Eustace Mullins' book here. Thus, we find that the United States still maintains an overwhelming lead in production and sales of drugs in the United States. That is, the sale of prescription drugs rose in 1987 by 12.5% to nearly $27 billion. 11 of the 18 leading firms are located in the United States, 3 in Switzerland, 2 in Germany, and 2 in the United Kingdom. Nutritionist T.J. Fry notes that the drug trust in the United States is controlled by the Rockefeller Group in a cartel relationship with IG Farben of Germany. In fact, IG Farben was the largest chemical concern company, that is, in Germany during the 1930s when it engaged with an active cartel agreement with Standard Oil of New Jersey. They actually, the Rockefeller organization, that is Standard Oil, gave them the technology at that time to get Germany involved in the war by basically using coal and somehow processing it in a way that it would produce oil. So they gave them that technology basically to keep them fighting in the war in World War II. And so it's just, that was agreement between them. Most are not aware of that. In fact, IG Farben was the largest chemical concern in Germany during the 1930s when it engaged in an active cartel agreement. I said that. The Allied military government split it up into 3 companies after World War II as part of the anti-cartel goals of that period, which was not unlike the famed splitting up of Standard Oil itself by the court order, which, while the Rockefeller maintained controlling interest in each of the new companies. In Germany, that is, the General William Draper of Dillon Read investment bankers unveiled the new decree from his office in the IG Farben building. That is, henceforth, IG Farben would exist no more. Instead, 3 companies would emerge. That is, Bayer of Leverkusen, BASF at Leverkusen, and Heuscha near Frankfurt. Each of the 3 spawns are now larger than the old IG Farben company. Only ICI of England is larger. These firms export more than half of their product. BASF is represented in the United States by Sherman and Sterling, the Rockefeller law firm of which William Rockefeller is a partner. The world's #1 drug firm, that is Merck, began as an apothecary shop in Darmstadt, Germany in 1668. Its president, John L. Horan, is a partner of J.P. Morgan's company and the Morgan Guaranty Trust. He attended a Bilderberger meeting in Rye, New York, in May 10th through the 12th in 1985. In 1953, Merck absorbed another large drug firm called Sharp and Dawn. At that time, Oscar Ewing, the central figure in the government fluoridation promotion for the Aluminum Trust, was secretary of the Merck firm. His office then being at 1 Wall Street, New York. Directors of Merck, including John T. Connor, who began his business career with Cravath, Cravath, Swank and Moore, the law firm of Coombe, Lowe and Company. Connor then joined the Office of Naval Research, became a special assistant to the Secretary of the Navy from 1945 to 1947, became president of Merck, then president of Allied Stores from 1967 to 80, then chairman of Strokers, a London banking firm. Connor is also a director of a competing drug firm called Warner Lambert, director of the media conglomerate called Capital Cities ABC, which is Capital Cities and ABC merged. Now I don't know who owns ABC now, and director of Rockefeller's Chase Manhattan Bank. So he's quite busy, you see. Each of the major drug firms in the United States has at least one director with close Rockefeller connections or with a Rothschild bank. By the way, almost all people that we hear of, and I'm going to make this very clear to you, the Rockefellers were Jews. So were the Rothschilds. Almost all major companies or people, banking especially, just changed their names, you see, and had what we call either a German name or French name or English name. And what trend comes of it, they drop the whole deal. So what they are is simply they're cloaking themselves, you see, pretending to be somebody they're not. Because most people would recognize who these people were by a Jewish name, you see. It'd be a lot easier for people to pin them down. Another director of Merck is John K. McKinley, Chief Operating Officer, CEO, I should say, of Texaco. He's also director of Manufacturers Hanover Bank, which congressional records identify as a major Rothschild bank. McKinley is also director of the aircraft firm called Martin Marietta, which I think Martin Marietta has now been bought out too. I think they were bought out by Lockheed. I can remember that correctly, I think, but I'm not absolutely. He was also in charge of Burlington Industries, which was a major textile plants in North Carolina, and is the director of the aircraft firm Martin Marietta, Burlington Industry, and the director of the Rockefeller-controlled Sloan Kettering and Cancer Center. Okay, you remember we talked about this before. Another Merck director is Reuben F. Medler, Mettler, chairman of the defense contractor TRW Incorporated. He was formerly chief of the Guided Missile Department at Ramo Woolridge and has received the Human Relations Award from the National Conference of Christians and Jews. He's also a director of the Bank of America. Let's go back a little bit further. TRW is bought out, I think, Greenfield Industries. They make a lot of cutting tools in the industry of machine shops and stuff like that. But I think Greenfield has been bought out by somebody else now, and I don't know what happened to TRW. It's probably been absorbed by some other larger company or merged together. I'm no longer in those circles, so I don't know who these people are anymore like I did in the past. Other directors of Merck included Frank T. Carey, who was chairman of IBM for many years. He's also director of Capital Cities ABC and partner of J.P. Morgan Company. Lloyd C. Elam, ELAM, president of Harry's Medical College, that is in Nashville, Tennessee, the nation's only black medical college. Elam is also director of the American Psychiatric Association. He's also involved in the Nashville City Bank and the Alpha P. Sloan Foundation, which gives him a close connection to the Rockefellers. That is, to the Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Marion Sulzberger Heiskell, it's Heiskell, heiress of the New York Times fortune. She was married to Orville Dreyfus, the paper editor who died of a heart attack during a newspaper strike. She then married Andrew Haskell in a media merger. He was the chairman of Time magazine and had been with the Lucet, L-U-C-E, organization for 50 years. She is also the director of Ford Motor Company. Haskell is director of People for the American Way, a political activist group, chairman of the New York Public Library, and the Book of the Month Club. Also on the board of Merck is family member Albert W. Merck, Renard H. Jones, born in England, former chairman of the General Electric Company, now chairman of the Board of Overseas. Also is involved with the Wharton School of Commerce, which is in Philadelphia. That's at the University of Pennsylvania. Director of Allied Stores and General Signal Corporation. Paul G. Rogers, who served in Congress from the 84th to the 95th Congresses. He was chairman of the important subcommittee on health. In 1979, he joined the influential Washington law firm and lobbyist called Hogan and Hartson. He's also director of American Cancer Society, the RAND Corporation, which is a think tank. Most people know that, hopefully, and Mutual Life Insurance. These guys have got their finger in everything. Thus, we find that the world's #1 drug firms have two directors who are partners of J.P. Morgan Company. One who's the director of the Rockefeller Chase Manhattan Bank, and one who's the director of the Rothschild Bank, that is Manufacturers Hanover. Although Manufacturers Hanover has been bought out too, so I don't know who that bank is now. Most of the directors are connected with vital defense industry. That is correct, and interlock with other defense firms. On the board of TRW, of which Reuben Medler is chairman, is William H. Crom George, former chairman of Alcoa, it's American Aluminum Company of America is what it stands for, ALCOA, standing for American Aluminum Company of America. And Martin Feldstein, former economic advisor to President Reagan. The major banks, that is, defense firms and prominent political figures, interlock with the CIA and drug firms. That's correct. I don't doubt that at all. Enormously, it goes on. Let's continue here. The #2 drug firm is Glasgow Holdings with $3.4 billion in sales. Its chairman is Austin Bide, B-I-D-E. Deputy chairman is P. Girolami. Girolami, who's director of National Westminster Bank, one of England's Big Five. I don't know if that bank is still in existence or not. Directors are Sir Alistair Frame, chairman of the Rio Tinto Zinc, which I think is a major mining company. I think it's in South America, but I'm not absolutely sure. They may have even holdings here in the United States, that is mines. One of the three firms which are the basis of the Rothschild's fortune is Frame is also on the board of another Rothschild holding, the well-known munition firm called Vickers, Vickers. Also, Pfizer, another defense firm, which recently had bid on a large contract with the United States Army. Frame is president of Britol, Britoil, and director of Glasgow. And Lord Fraser of Kilmarnock, who was deputy chairman of the Conservative Party, now the ruling party in England from 1946 to 1975, when he joined Glasgow. Lord Fraser was also a member of the influential Shadow Cabinet. B.D. Taylor, counselor of Victoria College of Pharmacy and chairman of Westcombe Hospital. J.M. Rosman, chairman of Shell Oil Company, that is in UK. And another Rothschild-controlled firm is Lloyds Bank, one of the Big Five, British Telecommunication, and the Royal Committee on Environmental Pollution. By the way, you'll notice these guys have all these connections with not only with banks, but they're involved in security of the country, supposedly defense, and they make money on that. That's the reason why the United States gets involved in wars, because they pay their quote unquote political people, that is your politicians, no matter what political party they are, to get involved or get started in some type of war, so they can always sell that stuff to the government. You see, they make money that way too. Let's see where we at here. Lloyd, okay, one of the Big Five. Okay, so British Telecom. Okay, we did that. Sir Ronald Arculas retired from Her Majesty's Diplomacy Service after a distinguishing career. Let me get something to change here real quick here. He has served in San Francisco, New York, Washington, and Paris. He was then appointed ambassador to Italy and was the UK delegate to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Wow, you hear that? I've done some videos on this also, on the law of the sea. Interesting. That's what we're going through, folks. This is where we're at. We're not on the law of the land. We're actually on the law of the sea, because it's all about merchants. It's all about selling stuff. And you are no longer actually free. You just think you are. You see, which sought to apportion marine wealth among the have-not countries. Arculas is now director of Trust House Forte Hotels and London and Continental Bankers. Professor R.G. Daffendor, one of the world's most active sociologists and a longtime Marxist propagandist. Daffendor, a director of the Ford Foundation since 1976. Now, he's not working for Ford. This is something I want you to explain to these people. They're working for what I would call these think tanks or organizations who are what I would call tax exempt here in the United States. The Ford Foundation is a tax exempt deal, which is not right. It's wrong, because they're actually destroying our country, and they're using every bit of the money they can get, and they're not paying any kind of taxes. You see, is a graduate of London School of Economics. That's another red flag. A professor of sociology at Hamburg and Tübingen, parliamentary secretary of state at the Foreign Office and West Germany since 1969, and has recently received honors from Senegal and Luxembourg and Leopold II. I assume that Leopold II is probably to do with Belgium. I'm guessing that, family-wise. The Rothschilds apparently appointed Dussendorf a director of Glasgow because of his emphatic Marxist pronunciations. The European director of the Ford Foundation, he claims in his book, Marx in Perspective, that Marx is the greatest factor in the emergence of modern society. And I'll continue to make this statement very clear to you. Marx, that is Karl Marx, was a Jew. Not only was he a Jew, his dad was also a priest in the Jewish synagogues. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that, because most people just say, oh, it's just a, and I'm assuming he changed his name. I'm pretty sure that's what he did, which most of them do. But again, it's like I call it, this crypto Jews is also another word. They hide behind an English name or a French name, a German name, like I just said earlier, because they know if they say Jewish people would wake up. But you need to wake up because I'm sharing this with you. Dahrendorf's principal contributions to sociology has been his well-advertised concept of the new man, when he has dubbed the Homo sociologicus a being who has been transformed by socialism into a person whose every distinctive feature, including radical characteristics, have disappeared. He is the modern robot, a uniform creature who can easily be controlled by the forces of world socialism. That's what they want you to be. They don't want you to be independent at all, and they don't want you to be having individual freedom, you see. Dahrendorf is the apostle of the modern faith that there are no radical differences in any of the various races of mankind. He denounces any mention of superiority or different skills as ideological distortion. Dahrendorf is also a prominent member of the Bilderbergs. He attended their meetings at Rye, New York from May 10th to the 12th, 1985. He's professor of sociology at Constance University as well as his other previous mentioned posts. Thus, we find that the world's #2 drug firm is directly by two of the Rothschild family's most trusted henchmen and by the world's most outspoken expositorial of Marxism. The world's #3 drug firm is Hoffmann LaRouche of Switzerland, is still controlled by members of the Hoffmann family, although there have been rumors of takeover attempts in recent years. The firm was founded by Fritz Hoffmann, who died in 1920. The firm's first big seller was Seropen in 1896. Its sales of Valium and Librium now amount to $1 billion a year. His subsidiary spread the dangerous chemical dioxin over the Italian town Seveso, that's Seveso, which cost $150 million to clean up in the 10-year campaign. His son's widow, Maya Sacher, is now married to Paul Sacher, a musician who is conductor of the Basel Chamber Orchestra. Hoffmann has added his wife's name, LaRouche, to the family company, as in the custom in Europe. The Hoffmann still controls 75% of the voting shares, though. The Schachers have one of the world's most expensive art collections, old masters and modern paintings. In 1987, Hoffmann and LaRouche tried to take over Sterling Drug, a venture in which they were aided by Louis Preston, chairman of the J.P. Morgan Company. He had also happened to be Sterling's banker. In the ensuing brouhaha, Preston decided to retire. Eastman Kodak then bought Sterling, with backing from the Rothschilds. It's amazing. Eastman Kodak is a chemical company, but it's also in the film operations too, if you know what I'm talking about. But Eastman part is the chemical part, you see. So Kodak's the camera part. The chairman of Hoffmann LaRouche is Fritz Gerber, a 58-year-old Swiss army colonel, the son of a carpenter. He became a lawyer, then chairman of Hoffmann LaRouche. Gerber is also director of Zurich Insurance Company. I'm sure you've heard of that company. Thus, he is associated with Switzerland's two biggest firms. He draws a salary of 2.3 million Swiss francs per year, plus a 1.7 million working agreement with Glasgow Holdings. You see why people like this are easily prey to continue to make money off of people, especially those that are poor and are sick. They're not healing anybody, though. You see, you've been completely brainwashed in that area. Oh yeah, maybe it might make you feel better, such and such, but eventually your body is what I would call organic. You see, it doesn't work the other way around. Anyway, what they do with drugs, I'll say simply, is they basically deaden the nerve. That's what they do with the drugs. Drugs are actually done this way to deaden your nerves, so that basically you feel better, because your nerves is telling you're in pain, something's wrong, and you need to evaluate what's going on. Something's wrong with your body. And most people just simply want to deal with the pain. So they think when they deal with that, they're not understanding, they're not getting to the root of the problem. You see. Hoffmann LaRouche received a great deal of publicity in April 1988 because of his unfavorable revelation about his acne drug, Accutane, after the Food and Drug Administration publicized figures that the drug had caused 1,000 spontaneous abortions, 7,000 other abortions, and other side effects such as joint aches, drying up skin and mucous membrane, and hair loss. Hoffmann LaRouche was faulted by FDA for purposely omitting women, in particular pregnant women, from the studies on which it based requests for the approval of Accutane. The company was aware that Accutane caused serious effects when taken during pregnancy. Hard on the heels of the Accutane revelation, Hoffman LaRouche made new headlines in the Wall Street Journal with Congressman Ted Weiss' demand report on May 6, 1988, that a criminal investigation be launched of the 40 deaths recorded since 1986 caused by taking Versal, that is, of Hoffman LaRouche tranquilizer, which is a chemical cousin of the best-selling drug Valium. The number 4 drug firm is called SmithKline here, also banks Beckman, I should say, SmithKline Beckman, banks with the Mellon Bank. Its chairman is Robert F. Deed, DEE, is the director of General Foods, Air Products, and chemical and defense firm United Technologies, which interlocks with Citibank. Okay, I can tell you a few things about this. General Foods is no longer in existence now. It's gone. Someone's bought it out. Air Products is involved in what I would call use products for welding supplies, that is gases and stuff like that, acetylene, oxygen. Also, Air Products is involved with hospitals providing oxygen, whatever other gases that are used in a hospital, but obviously oxygen is the number one. And you can see that he's involved. He's got his hands in different things here. Yes, United Technologies, which interlocks with Citibank. So he's got his hands not only in the defense, but he's also been involved with the food industry and also involved with chemical companies. Directors are Samuel H. Ballum, Junior Chairman of the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, Director of American Water Works, Westmoreland Coal Company, General Coal Company, INA Investment Securities Chairman of Cigna High Yield Funds, I've heard of them, Geothermal Resources International, Francis P. Lusser, Chairman of Black & Decker, Donald P. McHenry, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations from 79 to 81, now international advisor to the Council on Foreign Relations, trustee of Brookings Institute, which is another think tank, and the Carnegie Foundation for International Peace. They always talk about that international peace, don't they? It's all this globalist perspective. The Ford Foundation and the super secret Ditchley Foundation, DITCHLEY, set up by W. Averett Harriman during World War II. By the way, Harriman was a railroad tycoon in the past. McHenry is also director of Coca-Cola and the International Paper. Carolyn K. Davis, who was dean of the School of Nurses at University of Michigan from 73 to 75, and in Human and Health and Human Services since 1981. She is also director of Johns Hopkins. Other directors of SmithKline are Andrew L. Lewis Jr., chairman of Union Pacific, which is the basics of the Harriman fortune. He's director of Ford Motor Company. He's a trustee in the bankruptcy of the Reading Company, which the Reading Company was I'm assuming is to do with the railroads, but I could be wrong. Reading Railroad, could be wrong. But the former chairman of Reagan Transitional Team and deputy director of the Republican National Committee. R. Gordon McGovern, chairman of the Campbell Soup Company. Ralph A. Pfeiffer Jr., chairman of IBM World Trade Corporation, American International Far East Corporation, Riggs National Bank, and chairman of the U.S.-China Trade Commission. He is also vice chairman of the key foreign policy office, is called Center for Strategic and International Studies, which was founded by Jeane Kirkpatrick's husband, Aaron Kirkpatrick of the CIA. By the way, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, I would assume, is another think tank. It deals with foreign policy. The world's number 5 drug firm is Ciba Geigy. I guess that's how you pronounce it. Switzerland does $1 billion a year business in the United States and operates 10 drug factories here. So there are 10 factories here. I think they merged with a Mexican company. I'm not absolutely sure of that, but I'm thinking that's what pops in my mind. Don't hold me to that. The number 6 company is Pfizer. The size of the world's drug firm, it does $4 billion a year according to Standard & Poor's. The company's banks with the Rockefeller Chase Manhattan Bank. Pfizer chairman Edmund T. Pratt Jr. was comptroller of IBM from 1949 to 1962. He's now director of Chase Manhattan Bank, General Motors, International Paper, Business Council, and the Business Roundtable, 2 establishment organizations. He is also chairman of the Emergency Committee for American Trade. He's also the Pfizer president is Gerald Lombard, who joined Pfizer in 1950. He's a member of the Council of Rockefeller University, a director of Cigna, CIGNA, which I think is another insurance company. Loctite, which Loctite is no longer American. It's been bought out by a German company. I think it's called Hikers or something of that nature. And General Insurance Company. Barbara Constable is the director of Pfizer. He was a congressman representing New York from 65 to 1985, which would indicate a close Rockefeller connection. Constable is now president of the World Bank. Other directors of Pfizer are Joseph B. Flavin, that is chief operating officer of $2.5 billion a year Singer Company. Flavin was with IBM World Trade Corporation from 53 to 67, then president of Xerox. He's now with the Committee for Economic Development. He's also at Stanford, not Stanford, but Stanford, I was assuming Connecticut, STAMFORD Hospital, Cancer Research Foundation, no surprise, and the National Council of Christians and Jews. Wow. Yeah, that was, anyway, Howard C. Kaufman has been president of Exxon since 1975. He was previously regional coordinator in Latin America for Exxon, then the president of Esso Europe in London. He's also the director of Celanese, which is a fiberglass company. Celanese is a fiberglass company, and more than that, I'm sure, because they deal with glass. In Chase Manhattan Bank, his office is at 1 Rockefeller Plaza. James T. Lynn, who was general counsel for the U.S. Department of Commerce from 1969 to 71, then Undersecretary of State 71 to 73, and then Secretary of HUD from 73 to 75, succeeding George Romney in that post. That would be George Romney. Lynn was editor of the Harvard Law Review, then joined Jones, Day, Reeves, and Pogue in 1960, a large Washington lobbying firm. Lynn accompanied Peter Peterson, then Secretary of Commerce, former chairman of Kuhn Lowe and Company, to Moscow in 1972 to conclude a trade agreement with the Soviets. This agreement was concluded in October 1972. John R. Opel, president of IBM, director of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, Time, and the Institute for Advanced Studies. I would assume that's another think tank. Walter B. Wriston, chairman of Citicorp, director of General Electric, that is Chubb, which is another insurance company, New York Hospital, the Rand Corporation, which I mentioned before, is a think tank, and J.C. Penney's. Other directors of Pfizer are Grace J. Biflin, Secretary of Treasury of the $10 billion a year NYNEX, it's NYNEX Corporation. She is an advisor to Manhattan Hanover, another Rothschild Bank, director of Bear Stearns Investment Bankers, Gulf and Western Corporation. Gulf and Western used to own some theaters at one time. I don't know if they still do that. They were also in something else, but I can't remember right now. Connecticut Mutual Life Insurance, an honorary member of the board of American Cancer Society. Stanley O. Eikenberry, president of University of Illinois, director of Harris Bancorp, Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, and William J. Kennedy, chief operating officer of North Carolina Mutual Life, director of Quaker Oats with Frank Carlucci, who is now Secretary of Defense. Mobile with Alan Greenspan, who's now chairman of the Federal Reserve. Hold on a second. Sorry, I missed my place here. Greenspan was a delegate to the Bilderberg's meetings. Alan Greenspan, I think he's still alive. Rye, New York, May 10th, 12th, 1985. His wife is, what's her name? I think her name is Andre something. Her name is Andre something. I can't think of her last name. I mean, I'm trying to think of her name. She is still working for either, I think, NBC, I think, as a news reporter. She's pretty major up. In fact, she gets all these major people she speaks to. But I haven't watched news in a few years, so I don't know if that's still going on. Okay. Paul A. March, chief of Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. This is a big deal here. This Sloan Kettering Cancer Center is a big deal since 1980. He's a biologist, professor of human genetics at Cornell, and a professor, I should say, adjunct professor at Rockefeller University, and visiting professor at Rockefeller University Hospital. He is also with the National Institute of Health, Dreyfus Mutual Fund, director of cancer treatment at the National Cancer NCI, director of American Association for Cancer Research, and served in the President's Cancer Panel from 1976 to 1979. And the Presidential Commission on the Accident at 3 Miles Island. He's director of the $100 million Revson Foundation, that is a cosmetic fortune, with Simon Rickheim and Benjamin Buttenweiser, whose wife was attorney for Alger Hiss, while Budweiser was the assistant high commissioner for occupied West Germany. On the major drug firms, none show more direct connection with the Rockefeller interest than Pfizer. So all this is going on here. Just keep up with what these names of these companies are, folks, and you can start connecting the dots. Which banks with the Rockefeller Bank, Chase Manhattan, has a director, Howard Kaufman, that is the president of Exxon, and Paul March of the Rockefeller controls Sloan Keller Cancer Center and Rockefeller Hospital in most cases. Only one Rockefeller connection is needed to assure control of a corporation. Think about that. The number 7 company that is world ranked in drug firms is Hotchkiss, AG Hotchkiss, Germany, a spinoff from IG Farben, i.e. Rockefeller Warburg Rothschild Control. It operates a number of plants in the United States. There's one actually in eastern part of South Carolina as a plant, including American Hotchkiss at Somerville, New Jersey, and Hotchkiss Fiber Company manufactures the wisest use what they call polyester fiber called Trevira, Trevira, antibiotic food additives for swine and broilers called flavomycin, and other pharmaceuticals used in animal raisings. Think about that. Number 8 in world rank is American Home Products Bank. Banks at the Rothschild Bank, manufactured Hanover, and does $3.8 billion a year. It became even larger in its recent purchase of the A.H. Robbins Drug Company of Richmond, Virginia. A.H. Robbins has gone into bankruptcy after facing a $2.5 billion in payments to some 200,000 women who have been injured by his Dacon Shield, a intrauterine device. An inadequate tested vagina clamp caused severe damage to many women. A French firm, Sanofi, then attempted to buy the firm, but was beaten out when American Home decided to pay a premium price for the firm's well-known brand names. That is Chapstick and Robitussin. American Home CEO is John W. Cudkin, who has been with the firm since 1937. He is a Knight of Malta. He's involved with the Knights of Malta, a director of Mellon Bank, Carnegie Mellon University, American Standard, and Valley Hospital. President of American Home is John R. Stafford, director of Rothschild Bank, manufactured Hanover. He was formerly general counsel for the number 3 ranked drug firm Hoffman & LaRouche and partner of the influential law firm called Steptoe and Johnson. Directors are K.R. Berthon of Norway, now president of Lafayette College. A Richard Dybel, Paul R. Fronnery, and head of the pharmaceutical division of of the War Production Board from 42 to 46. He is now trustee of John Cabot College, which I assume is up north. Rome, maybe it's in Rome, New York. Overseer of Case Western Reserve University, Mercy Hospital, Navy League, and the Biscayne Yacht Club. William F. Laporte, who is director of manufacturing Hanover Trust and American Standard. B.F. Goodrich. I think American Standard is involved in plumbing supplies. That's what I was makes plumbing supplies. B.F. Goodrich, Dime Savings Bank, and president of Buck Hill Falls Company. John L. McGritty, chairman of Manufacturers Hanover Bank, who recently replaced Lewis Preston of J.P. Morgan Company, that is, as director of Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Preston has been criticized for his role in promoting a deal for Hoffman LaRouche while engaging at Sterling Drugs banker. Interesting. Very sick. John F. Terrell III, president of Manufacturer Hanover Trust and manufacturer of Hanover Corporation. H.W. Blades, who was former president of White, WYETH Labs, is now director of Provident Mutual Life Insurance. Wistar International, Philadelphia National Bank, and Brian Mott Hospital, and Robin Chancellor Duke of the tobacco fortune, that is family. Edwin A. Geeg, GEE, Director of Air Products and Chemical International Paper, which I think is probably the largest paper company in the country. Bell and Howard, which is, I don't think they're around anymore. He's now chairman of International Paper and Canadian International Paper. Robert W. Sarnoff, son of David Sarnoff, who was founder of the RCA Empire, and William Wrigley, the chairman of the Wrigley Corporation, director of Texaco and Boulevard National Bank of Chicago. William Wrigley was also the owner of Wrigley's Field and the chewing gum company in Chicago. The number 9 drug company, world ranking, is Eli Lilly Company, whose chairman Richard D. Wood is also director of Standard Oil of Indiana, Chemical Bank, New York, Elizabeth Arden, HIVAC Corporation, Cardiac Pacemakers Incorporated, Elanco Products, Dow Jones, Lilly Endowment, Fisco Control Corporation, and the American Enterprise AEI for Public Policy. That's a think tank, a supposedly right-wing think tank in Washington, where Gene Kirkpatrick reigns supreme. Director of Lilly are Stephen C. Bering, born in Berlin, Germany, now president of Purdue University. He serves on numerous medical boards, Diabetes Association, Integradine Association, and is director of Arvin Industries. I think Arvin is involved in all kinds of little things. I think they make little small heaters and small not plumbing, but something to do with vacuum cleaners. I think also. Maybe you're wrong about that. Randall H. Tobias is the director of Bretton Woods Committee. Has been with Bell Telephone Labs since 1964. Now he's director of AT&T and Home Insurance Corporation. Robert C. Siemens Jr., who was Secretary of the Air Force from 69 to 73, now is director of Carnegie Institute. It's amazing when you're involved in government, you get these really nice, good jobs, you see. It's director of Carnegie Institute, Smithsonian Museum, and National Geographic Society with Lawrence Rockefeller. He's also director of Combustion Engineering, a firm which is engaged in a number of deals with the Soviet Union. Also, Putnam Funds, a New England powerhouse investment firm. Also, other directors of Eli Lilly are J. Clayton LaForge and Fulbright Scholar, now director of the Rockefeller-funded National Bureau for Economic Research and is dean of the Graduate School of Management at the University of California. LaForge is an influential member of the secretive MONT, M-O-N-T, Pelerin, P-E-L-E-R-I-N Society, which represents the Viennese School of Economics, a Rothschild-sponsored enterprise which features Milton Friedman. Didn't know that. It's interesting. As its mouthpiece. It's actually a pseudo right-wing think tank run by William Buckley and the CIA, correct. LaForge is also trustee of the pseudo right-wing think tank, also Hoover Institute of Stanford, which is where, what's his name was involved in. I wrote a book. I didn't write a book, but a book has been written by him. It'll come to me. Let's go back here. Which is run by 2 directors of Rockefeller-funded League for Industrial Democracy, the leading Trotskyite think tank, Cindy Hook and Seymour Martin Leafset. Other directors of Lilly are J. Paul Lett, the second chairman of the giant defense firm Sperry Corporation, S-P-E-R-R-Y. I don't know where that company's at now. I haven't seen anything from it, although they may be in electronics. 2/3 of the contracts are with government agencies. Light is also director of Eastman Kodak, which has just purchasing Sterling Drug. He's also director of Armstrong World Industries. He's also involved with NL Industries and the Continental Group, which I'm thinking the Continental Group is to do, I don't know, that was go. Alvin Osis Way, the 3rd president of American Express, director of Schrober Bank and Trust, former chairman, also director of Shearson Lehman, which is now incorporates Kuhn Lowe and Company, and Lehman Brothers, which Lehman Brothers is no longer. They went belly up back in 2008, 9, somewhere in that time. Directors of Fireman's Fund Insurance Company and American International Banking Corporation and Warnex Ampex Communications Corporation. That is the company who, I don't know if they still make it. Used to work in what we call the recording industry. Could be, I don't know. C. William Verity Jr., whose father founded Armco Steel, a Yale graduate. Verity is now chairman of Armco. He was recently appointed Secretary of Commerce to replace fellow Yale man Malcolm Baldrige, a director of defense from Scoville Manufacturing. Baldwin has fallen off a horse, Verity is also director of Chase Manhattan Bank, Mead Corporation. Mead is also in the paper industry and Taft Broadcasting. Verity was chosen as Secretary of Commerce because of his long-time record of agitation on behalf of the super secretive group called the U.S. and the USSR Trade and Economic Council, also known as USTEC, whose records are classified as top secret. Several lawsuits are now underway to force the government to release these documents under the Freedom of Information Act. But so far, the government attorneys have fought off all attempts to find out what the group is doing. Supposedly a cordial group of well-meaning American businessmen meeting with their smiling Soviet counterparts. That is, USTEC was the brainchild of a top KGB officer who promoted it as the 1973 summit meeting between President Nixon and Brezhnev. The go-between was Donald Kendall of PepsiCo, who had just concluded a major trade deal with Russia. So this is all about business, folks. That's what this is all about. Making money, borrowing money. Part of the price for Kendall selling, that is, USTEC, to the White House team, without Kendall, US Tech might never have gotten off the ground. The real goal of US Tech was voiced by H. Rowan Gator, head of the Ford Foundation, when he was interviewed by foundation investor Norman Dott. That's the chairman. That is the in the House. Gator complained about the bad press the Ford Foundation was receiving, claiming it was unjustified. Most of us here, he's claimed, in self-exculpation, were at one time or another active in either the OSS, which is the eventually would become the State Department, or the European Foundation Administration. During those times, and without exception, we operated under directives issued from the White House, the substance of which was to the effect that we should make every effort to alter life in the United States as to make possible a comfortable merger with the Soviet Union. Interesting. US Tech is an important step in the merging program. Alva Way, president of American Express, serves at the board on Eli Lilly with C. William Verley. Way's fellow executive James T. Robertson III, who is chairman of American Express, is a prime mover in US Tech, as is Robert Russo, partner in Brown's Brother Harriman investment firm, banking firm, who is executive officer of the Trilateral Commission. Other important US Tech members are Edgar Bronfman, head of the World Zionist Congress, chairman of Seagram's, which is a Canadian firm, the Bronfman family firm, and controlling a sizable part of DuPont stock. Maurice Greenberg, chairman of the American Independent Group, Dr. Armand Hammer, longtime friend of the Soviet Union, Dwayne Andres, giant tycoon, his head of the Archer Daniel Midland Corporation. Andres, who financed the CREEP called CREEP, the organization which brought about the resignation of Richard Nixon from the presidency of the United States, has on his board Robert Strauss, former chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and Miss Nelson Rockefeller. In 1972, a meeting was called in Washington in the ultra-exclusive F Street Club, which had long been the secret meeting place for the top wheelers and dealers in Washington. Donald Kendall had invited David Rockefeller, who had opened a branch of Chase Manhattan in Red Square, Moscow. Helmut Sonnenfeld of the State Department, who reputedly had been Henry Kissinger's control when Kissinger came to the United States as a double agent under Sonnenfeld's patronage, and George Arbitrov, the well-known Soviet propagandist in the United States. Arbitrov told the group with Soviet Russia wanting to be on the board of the prospective organization which became US Tech. He wanted Dr. Armand Hammer, Renard Jones of General Electric, and Frank Carey of IBM, and Irving Shapiro, head of DuPont. US Tech essentially purpose was to promote trade between the US and Russia. Its real purpose was to rescue the floundering Soviet economy and save its leaders from a disaster revolution. Even this later in the time. This is in the 70s, folks. The U.S. offered high technology grain and military goods. The Russians offered to continue the communist system. Nothing there, nothing changed. The world's 10th largest drug firm is Upjohn, which is heavily into the production of agricultural chemicals such as Asgrow, AESGROW. Upjohn has now been taken over by the leading defense firm called Todd Shipyards, which director includes Harry Ekman, a director of W.R. Grace. That's a mining company. They mine kaolin here in South Carolina. The Bank of New York, the Centennial Life Insurance Company, Home Life Insurance Company. He's the chairman of Atlantic Mutual Insurance Company, and Union de Cereos of Mexico. Raymond B. O'Brien Jr., chairman of the Immigrant Savings Bank of New York and International Shipholding Corporation. R.T. Parfait Jr., who's chairman of Upjohn, director of Michigan Bell Telephone. Lawrence C. Hoff, who's chairman of the National Foundation for Infectious Diseases. These are all 501(c) groups here, folks. Also, remember that already talked about that. Today, 501(c) groups are involved in telling you that they have some type of way of solving some illnesses, but in reality, they don't. It's a lie. It's a way for them to make money. They keep coming to your door using pink stuff and all this stuff and campaigning, and then they make this money because they don't have to pay any taxes on it, folks. Just open up your 501(c) deal. He is also the head of, he's also on the board of Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. No surprise there, and was Undersecretary of Health at HEW from 1974 to 77. He is director of the National Heart and Lung Institute, another 501(c) group here. Just think, folks, this is what they're doing. The U.S. Public Health Service Pharmacy Board, P.H. Bullen, B-U-L-L-E-N, was with IBM from 46 to 77. Now operates at Bullen Management Company. Daniel F. Horning, H-O-R-N-I-G, professor and director of the Interdisciplinary Progress in Health at the Harvard University School of Public Health. He's director of Westinghouse Electric and was group leader of Los Alamos, which is the in development of the atomic bomb. That's in Los Alamos, New Mexico. He was a special advisor in science in the U.S. Public Health Service from 64 to 69. He has received Guggenheim and Fulbright fellowships. Guggenheim, I should say, is involved in copper, I think it is, mining. And let's go on. Preston S. Parrish, chairman of the executive committee of Upjohn, is a trustee of Williams College, Bronson Medical Hospital. That has to be a private hospital. Chairman of trustees for the W.E. Upjohn Company, Unemployment Corporation, chairman of Cal Aero, A-E-R-O, American National Holding Company, and co-chairman of the Food and Drug Law Institute. William D. Mulholland, chairman of the Bank of Montreal, in which the Brofmans, F-M-A-N, Brofmans, have controlling interests. Charles Brockman is the director. Mulholland is also director of Standard Life Assurance Company of Edinburgh, Scotland. Director of Kimberly-Clark, another plant located where I live here in South Carolina, a massive plant. Canadian Pacific Railroad, Harris Bancorp, and the Bahamas and Caribbean Limited branch of the Bank of Montreal. Mulholland was a general partner of Morgan Stanley from 52 to 69 when he became president of Brinco, a Rothschild holding company in Canada from 70 to 74. Mulholland is also director of Allegene Credit Stall of Frankfurt, birthplace that of Rothschild family. That's in Germany. Also director of Upjohn is William N. Hubbard Jr., director of Johnson Controls. That's involved in certain things to do with, I don't know, maybe I won't say that. Consumer Power Company, a $3.5 billion a year corporation that is formerly president of Upjohn and dean of the Medical College of New York University. The 11th largest drug firm is the E.E. Squibb. E.E. Squibb has a chairman named Richard E. Furlong. He's director of the leading munition firm Olin Corporation and was general counsel for Olin from 57 to 66. Farland was an attorney with the prominent Wall Street law firm Root, Valentine, Hartland, Bushby, and Palmer, founded by Elihu Root, which is an enormous key person here. That's a well-known law firm. Elihu Root was the one who was able to prevent the government destroying Rockefeller. It's more than that, but that's just what I remember right now. So he's one who's kept them, what we call, helped them to keep the government from actually breaking their trust. He's a lawyer. And as far as I know, no lawyer has been able, the government has not found anybody who can do that. Wilson's Secretary of State, who rushed $100 million from Wilson's personal war fund to Soviet Russia to save the tottering Bolshevik regime in 1917, Furlong is a trustee at a Rockefeller University, and the Sloan Kettering Cancer Institute, which shows a Rockefeller connection at Squibb. Director of Squibb includes J. Richardson Dilworth, the longtime financial trustee for all the members of the Rockefeller family. Dilworth married into the wealthy Cushon family and was a partner of Kuhn Lowe Company from 46 to 58. When his partner, Louis Strauss of Kuhn Lowe, retired as a financial advisor to the Rockefellers. Dilworth took the job full time in '58, taking over the entire 56th floor of Rockefeller Center, where he handled every bill incurred by any member of the family unit from 1981. He's now chairman of the board of Rockefeller Center, director of Nelson Rockefeller's International Basic Economic Corporation, was involved in the Chrysler Corporation, the R.H. Macy Company, the Colonial Williamsburg, another Rockefeller Family Enterprise, and Rockefeller University. He is also the trustee of the Yale Corporation. Now, Yale Corporation at one time was involved in many things. One is simply they used to make locks. I assume they still are. And also with forklifts, they made those and other things. And the Metropolitan Museum and director of Selective Investments of Luxembourg. Other directors of Squibb are Louis V. Gerstner, president of American Express, director of Caterpillar Tractor, and longtime board member of Sloan Kettering Cancer Institute. Charles G. Koch, head of the family firm Koch Enterprises, a $3 billion a year operation in Kansas City. Koch is a $500 million fortune and personally bankrolled the supposedly right-wing organization, the Cato Institute, which is another think tank, and the Mount Peleton Society, and the Libertarian Party. Interesting. By the way, Koch has always been involved. He's been helping. Most recently, he's been involved with that. I think with Trump, giving tons of money. Koch Industries banks solely with Morgan Guaranty Trust, which brings it onto the order of J.P. Morgan Company. Other directors of Squibb. This is all a family, folks. This is all a total family. Can't you get that? These people are well off, and the government itself is powerless in dealing with these people. They just find someone once in a while and get someone and nail it. But there's thousands of these people involved. And they move from one company to another company as directors. Other directors of Squibb are Helen M. Ranney, chairman of the Department of Medicine at the University of California, San Diego since 1973. She was with the Pennsylvania Hospital in New York from 60 to 1994, and is a member of the American Society of Hematology. Robert W. Van Fosten, chairman of the Mutual Benefit Life Insurance, director of Long Island Public Service Gas and Electric. Marilyn Hess, which is no longer in business, was bought out. That's the Hess Oil Company. And Nova Pharmaceutical Corporation. Samuel H. McDonnell, I should say, chairman of the defense firm McDonnell Douglas Aircraft Corporation. He's director of the Centuro Bancorp and the Navy League. Robert H. Ebert, dean of the medical school at Harvard since 1964, is a trustee of the Rockefeller Foundation, the Population Council, and president of the influential Milbank Memorial Fund. Director of Robert W. Johnson Foundation from the Johnson & Johnson pharmaceutical fortune. Ebert was a Rhodes Scholar, there's a red flag, and a Markle Scholar. Burton E. Sobel, director of the Cardiac Division at Washington University since 1973, National Institute of Health, editor of Clinical Cardiology, American Journal of Cardiology, American Journal of Physiology, and many other medical positions. Rawlings Warner Jr., chairman of the Giant Mobile Corporation and director of many companies, including AT&T, Ally Signal, which is a $9 billion a year defense firm, the American Express Company, Chemical Bank. Also the head of Signal was John F. Conley. You know who he is, a former senator from the state of Texas, former secretary treasurer also, and Carla Hills, former secretary of HUD, whose husband was chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. These guys are working with the government back and forth everywhere, folks. No wonder nothing changes. Nothing will change. You see, this is all a big family. They're involved with corporations, and the corporations are involved. The people are involved in getting all kinds of these contracts, which are basically given to them by the government. Dirty. And Carla Hills, former Secretary of HUD, whose husband was chairman of the Securities and Exchange Corporation, Eugene F. Williams, director of defense firm Olin Corporation, and Emerson Electric. Emerson Electric has a plant here where I live at. A major company. I think they own W.W. Grainger. As far as I remember, they do own Grainger. Squibb recently established a research institute at Oxford University with a $20 million donation. Wow. It also maintains the Squibb Institute for Medical Research in the United States. The skin of the family is Senator Lowell Weicker. That's right. A liberal who consistently votes against the Republican Party, of which he is a member. He's shielded from party discipline by his family fortune. Of course he is. Probably more than that. 12th is ranking of the world's drug firm is Johnson & Johnson. His chairman is James E. Burke, is also director of IBM and Prudential Institute. Now, how do these guys have all these positions? Think time-wise, folks. Think of this. These are nice, cushy jobs. They make money on this, you see. They're benefited. You see, they're given all these positions because they go along with the rank and file. James F. Burke is also director of IBM and Prudential President Johnson. Okay, David R. Clare. He's also the board of MIT and director of Motorola and Overlook Hospital. Directors are William O. Baker, research chemist at Bell Telephone Labs from 1939 to 1980. He's a specialist in polymer research. Baker is on the boards of many organizations and serves on the President Intelligence Advisory Board. He's a consultant to the National Security Agency, the NSA, consultant to the Department of Defense since 1959, trustee of the Rockefeller University, General Motors, Cancer Research Foundation, and the Robert A. Welch Foundation. Thomas S. Murray, chairman of the media conglomerate Capital Cities ABC, director of Texaco. Clifford E. Garvin, chairman of Exxon 647, capstone of the Rockefeller fortune. He is also a director of Citicorp and Citibank. TRW, the defense firm, JCPenney's, PepsiCo, Cola. Spurry, vice chairman of the Sloan Kettering Cancer Center again, folks, chairman of the Business Roundtable, and trustee of the Teachers Annuity Association of America. Also, director of Johnson & Johnson is Irvin M. London, chairman at Albert Einstein College of Medicine since 1970, professor of medicine at Harvard and MIT, Rockefeller Fellow in Medicine at Columbia University, consultant to the Surgeon General of the United States. Paul J. Risco, vice chairman of IBM and the Morgan Stanley Group. Joan Gantz Cooney, who is married to Peter Peterson, the former chairman of Kuhn, Lowe and Company. She's president of Children's TV Workshop, director of the Chase Manhattan Bank, the Chase Manhattan Group, the May Department Stores, and Xerox. She has been a publicist for NBC since 1954, when she developed her profitable children's television program. She received the Stephen S. Wise Award. Number 13 is a world ranking of Sandoz of Switzerland. That is the lysergic acid. The famous LSD was developed in Sandoz laboratories in 1943 by chemist Dr. Albert Hofmann, Hofmann. Sandoz has $5 billion a year in business revenue, including $500 million in agricultural chemicals and dyestuffs produced by the American factories. Sandoz owns Northrop King, the huge hybrid seed company, and also Viking Brass and other firms. 14 in the world's ranking is Bristol Myers. Its chief operating officer is Richard Gelb, G-E-L-B, formerly with Clairol, the company which has been founded by his family. Gelb is chairman of the Rockefeller-controlled Sloan Kettering. Kansas City, there must be 15 people in that group here, at least. He's director of Federal Reserve Bank of New York. He's also Clute Peabody, that is New York Times, New York Life Insurance, Bankers Trust, which is no longer around. Bank is gone. The Council of Foreign Relations, the Business Council, and the Business Roundtable. Director of Bristol Myers includes Ray C. Adams, a partner of J.P. Morgan Company and director of Morgan Guaranty Trust, Metropolitan Life, City Services, and chairman of the $2 billion a year NL Industries, a petroleum fuel service concern. That is William M. Eltonhaus, who has been with the Bell System since 1940, president of New York Telephone Directory of JCPenney's, Bankers Trust, vice chairman of New York Stock Exchange International Paper, Armstrong World Industries, which is, I think, is involved in the carpet industry and the towel industry here in America. New York Blood Center and United Way. So New York Blood Center is going to be another 501(c), so is United Way. He's the Knight of Malta of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem. He's the president of ATT and director of Textron, which is a textile chemical company, Revlon, and Pacific Telephone and Telegraph. John D. Malcolm. Now, these companies, I assume, are, like when I said telephone and telegraph, they've probably been merged under AT&T now, as far as I know, because they were undone and then they were brought back. So there was a company called here, Southern Bell, and then eventually they were split up and became Bell South, and then they all been put back together again. It's just how it goes here. It's just, AT&T were all back together. Director of Textron, Revlon. Okay, I already did that. Chairman of Celanese, Director of the Chase Manhattan Bank, RGR Industries, Nabisco, which Nabisco is no longer here in the United States. In fact, RGR is the tobacco fortune. Martha R. Wallace, member of the Trilateral Commission, management consultant to the Department of State from 51 to 53, now director of RCA, Fortune, Time, Henry Luce Foundation, and with Redfield Associates Consultants since 1983. She is chairman of the New York Rhodes Scholar Selection Committee, director of American Express, Chemical Bank, New York Stock Exchange, New York Telephone, chairman of the Financial Committee of the Council on Foreign Relations, and member of the super secret American Council on Germany, which is said to be the behind-the-scene government of West Germany. Robert E. Adam, who's director of AT&T, Pacific Northwest Bell, Manufacturers Hanover, and the Manufacturer Hanover Trust Company. Henry H. Hensley, Jr., chairman of the Kluck Peabody, also the Klukpak Corporation, General Electric, Home Life Insurance, Manufacturer Hanover Bank, and the Manufacturer Hanover Trust, and trustee of the Presbyterian Hospital. And New York, that is James D. Robertson III, chairman of American Express, director of Shearson Lemon Houghton, which is a hotel chain, which is no longer, I think, is bought by somebody else now. I think that's right. Maybe I'm wrong. Coca-Cola, Union Pacific, Trust Company of Georgia, chairman of Rockefeller Memorial Hospital for Cancer and Allied Diseases, board member of the Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, council member of the Rockefeller University, chairman of the United Way, Council on Foreign Relations, Business Council, and the Business Roundtable, the epitome of the New York establishment figurehead. Robinson was with Morgan Guaranty Trust from 61 to 68 as assistant to the president of the bank. Andrew C. Sigler, chairman of the Key Policy Corporation's Champion Paper, director of Chemical New York and Cabot Corporations and General Electric and RCA. Bristol Myers is the 14th largest, Bristol Myers is the 44th largest advertiser in the United States with an annual expenditure of $344 million, mostly in television and advertising. This gives them a great deal of clout in dictating the content of programming that is on television. Bristol Myers is now pushing its new tranquilizer, that is Buspar, B-U-S-P-A-R, and its new anti-cholesterol drug called Questron, Q-U-E-S-T-R-A-N, which expects to gross at least $100 million a year each. See, they want you sick all the time, folks, so they sell you all this stuff, and eventually you die. You never really live a fruitful life. The track record for anti-cholesterol drugs has revealed some disturbing side effects, such as liver damage, and other unforeseen consequences, naturally. Number 15 is a World Drug Firming ranking is Beecham Group of England, which specializes in human and veterinary pharmaceuticals. Chairman of Beecham is Robert P. Baughman, B-A-U-M-A-N, who's also vice chairman of Textron, director of McKesson, M-C-K-E-S-S-O, another drug firm, that is, and the media conglomerate Capital City ABC. President of Beecham is Sir Graham Wilkins, director of Thorn EMI. That's to do with music records and stuff like that. Hill Samuel, the investment banker, one of the Magic 17 merchant bankers licensed by the Bank of England, and Roundtree McIntosh candy firm, as well as Quartot, the giant English textile firm, which has close links with the British Secret Intelligence Service. Director of Beecham are also Lord Keith of Castleacre, who's chairman of Hill Samuel Investment Bankers, director of Rolls-Royce, British Airways, the Times Newspaper Limited, and chairman of the Economic Planning Council, which has total power over businesses in England. Wow. Lord Keith, you see, they have control of it because simply this is for them. It's not for you. You want to try something out and be a business such and such. They'll, you got to be one of them to be a part of it. Lord Keith was intelligence director of the Foreign Office before this is how they pay their people back, how they get their foot in the door. Another director of Beecham is Lord Basson of Kelvinside, who is chairman of the Shell Transport and Trading, a Rothschild control firm, director of British Airways, Shell Petroleum, and Rolls-Royce. He's commander of the Order of Orange Nassau, the secret that is the super secret organization created to celebrate the establishment of William of Orange as King of England and the subsequently charting of the Bank of England. Beecham American Subsidies does $500 million a year. Number 16 is the world ranking is AG Baer of Germany, one of the three spinoffs from IG Farben cartel after World War II, set up under orders from the Allied military government, which was then dominated by General William Draper of Dillon Reed Investment Bankers. Baer is now larger than the original IG Farben company. In 1977, Baer bought Miles Laboratory and Germain Monti Perfumes. In 1981, it also bought Agbal AGFA Gravatt, another spinoff of American IG Farben, and in 1983 it bought Cutter Laboratories in California firm, which was famed as having been set up to protect the Rockefeller-controlled drug firms in the great polio immunization wars. All the family polio vaccine was said to have been produced by Cutter, freeing the Rockefeller firms from the threats of lawsuits. Of course, that's the way it works, isn't it? During the 1930s, Baer operated Sterling Drugs and Winthrop Chemical Companies in the United States as subsidies of the giant IG Farben Company cartel. Winthrop Chemical's president was George C. Klum, K-E-L-U-M-P-P, who had married into the J.P. Morgan's family. Klum was chief of the drug division of the Food and Drug Administration in Washington from 35 to 41, where he became president of Winthrop Chemical. He has also been professor of medicine at Yale Medical School. The director of Winthrop, E.S. Rogers, was physician at the Rockefeller Institute from 32 to 34, dean of the School for Public Health at the University of California, Berkeley since 1946. Rogers has been consultant to the Secretary of War from 41 to 45. Lawrence Rockefeller was also director of Winthrop Chemical, showing the close connection between the Rockefellers and the IG Farben. Rockefeller was also director of McDonnell Aircraft, Eastern Airlines, which is no longer. Eastern Airlines has been broke since probably the 1990s. Chase Manhattan Bank, International Nickel, which is probably a mining operation, International Basic Economic Corporation, Memorial Hospital, and the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. The number 17 world ranked drug firm is Syntex, Syntex, a firm prominent in the agribusiness. Its founding chairman was George Roskenrantz of Budapest, gives his present address at 1730 Park Vigro in Mexico. So he's in Mexico. He left the country after a bizarre kidnap scheme involving his wife. Chairman and president of Syntex is Albert Bowers, born in Manchester, England, a Fulbright Fellow and member of the Council of Rockefeller University. Directors are Martin Carton, Executive Vice President of Allen & Company, Wall Street investors firm, which was rumored for years to be the investment arm of Meyer Lasky, $500 million fortune from mafia activities. Carton is chairman of the Financial Committee of Fischbach Corporation, director of Rocker Incorporated, also Barco of California, Frank B. Hall and Company, and Williams Electronics. Other directors of Syntex include Dana Leadville, chairman of the Leadville Manufacturing Company Corporation, director of Pritchard Healthcare, Chicago Title and Trust, United Artists, Transamerica, and chairman of Occidental Life Insurance. Leonard Martz, executive vice president of Castles and Cook, the Hawaiian investment firm, director of the Times Mirror Corporation, Wells Fargo, Homestead Mining Company, and California and the Hawaii Sugar Company. Martz was assistant secretary of the Air Force from 64 to 68 in the United States. Also director of Syntex is a big name in banking, Anthony Solomon, now chairman of S.G. Warburg's Mercury International. Solomon was economist with the OPA when Richard Nixon began his career as government service there. Solomon then opened a canned soup firm in Mexico called Rosa Blanco, which is sold for many millions. He then returned to the government service as official of the AID, president of the International Investment Corporation for Yugoslavia from 69 to 72, was appointed Undersecretary for Monetary Affairs of the Treasury Department from 77 to 1980, and succeeded Paul Volcker as president of the Key Money Market Bank, that is, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. When David Rockefeller moved Boxer up to become chairman of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors in 1980, Solomon is also director of Banco Comerciale Italiano. Syntex is remembered for the mercurial rise in the stock when it began to dump vast amounts of condemned drugs in backward overseas countries, his profits skyrocketed, as did his stock. Man, oh man. Number 18 in the world ranking is the former empire of Elmer Bobst, B-O-B-S-T. We talked about him before. Warner Lambert is the number 19 advertiser in the United States, spending $469 million a year on ads. Chairman of Warner Lambert is Joseph D. Williams, who's also director of Warner Lambert's subsidiary called Parke Davis, whose acquisition went through only because Bobst had secured the presidency for his friend Richard Nixon. Yes, indeed. Williams is also director of AT&T, JCPenney's, Western Electric, Excello, Columbia University. He is chairman of the People to People Foundation, president of Warner Lambert in Melbourne R. Goulds, born in Canada, who was with the Ford Motor Company. Goulds was a fellow of the Ford Foundation and the Sears Robot Foundation. Warner Lambert, which was built into a drug empire by the many Bobst acquisitions, now featuring Listerine mouthwash and is 26.9% alcohol. Wow. Bromo Seltzer, Dentyne, Schick Razors, Sloan Liniment, and Pacipine Tranquilizers. Directors are B. Charles Ames, chairman of the Acme Cleveland, the M.A. Hanna Corporation, Diamond Shamrock, and Harris Graphics. Donald L. Clark, chairman of the Household International, a huge financial firm. Square D, Evidence Hospital and Council of Foreign Relations. William R. Howard, chairman of the JCPenney's, director of Exxon and NYNEX. New York Next is the New York Stock Exchange, not New York Stock Exchange, sorry. It's another time, sorry. Paul S. Morabito, director of Burroughs Consumer Power and Detroit Renaissance, the ill-fated experiment in human rehabilitation, which poured billions into the Detroit rat hole, and from which Henry Ford II resigned in disgust. Kenneth J. Whalen, director of American Motors, which is no longer in existence. American Motors was bought out by Chrysler back in the late 80s. Combustible Engineering, Whirlpool, and trustee of Union College, John L. Burdett, director of ACF Industries, General Public Utilities, which has sales of $2.87 billion a year. Chairman of ACF is a noted raider, that is Carl Icahn, who is chairman of the subsidiary of IC Holding Companies. Also director of Warren Lambert are Richard A. Kramer, Irving Kristol, there's his name, kingpin of the neoconservative movement, which centers around Gene Kirkpatrick and the CIA, and Henry G. Parks Jr., token black, who founded Parks Sausages in Baltimore. He's now director of W.R. Grace and Signal Company. Other directors of Warner Lambert are Paul S. Russell on the Harvard Medical School, Columbia College of Physicians and Surgeons, U.S. Navy, U.S. Public Health Services, director of Sloan Kettering Cancer Center since 1974, and Edward J. Sullivan, chairman of Borden, which is hanging on by a thread these days, Borden Milk, director of Bank of New York, director of F.W. Woolworths, professor and trustee of St. John's University. Sullivan is Knight of Malta, director of the Council of Foreign Relations and the Atlantic Council. Sterling Drugs, maker of Bayer's aspirin, that is, and a spinoff from the IG Farben cartel, is another important drug firm. Its chairman is W. Clark Westcoke, is a director of Tinker Foundation, John Simons Guggenheim Foundation, Phillips Petroleum, Phillips 66 merged with another company, and Hallmark Cards. He's chairman of the China Medical Board of New York, long the favorite charity of medical tycoon Henry Luce. Westcote is also director of the Samuel H. Crest Foundation and Columbia University and controls billions in foundation funds. He's director of the American Medical Association, American College of Physicians, and the Council of Family Health. President of Sterling is John N. Pietrowski, who was with Procter & Gamble from 54 to 67. Now director of Irving Bank, Associate Dry Goods. That is a textile empire doing $2.6 billion a year. He's later president of James G. Andrus, was with Abbott Laboratories. Director are Gordon T. Wallace, a chairman of the Irving Bank and Irving Trust, director of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. He's also Council of Foreign Relations. F.W. Woodward, the JWT Group, General Telephone and Electronics, Wing Hang Bank Limited. I assume that's probably that bank is in Hong Kong. I'm guessing that it has a Chinese name, but it could not. It probably is, but that's probably no longer. And International Commerce Bank Limited, William E.C. Dearden, who was chairman of Hershey Foods from 64 to 85, now with the Heritage Foundation, a pseudo right-wing think tank run by the British Fabian Society. You hear that again, I'll say that, Heritage Foundation. You see, the pseudo right-wing think tank run by the British Fabian Society, and Martha T. Muse, president of the very influential Tinker Foundation, $30 million. She's also director of Irving Bank, the American Council on Germany, ruling group of the West Germany, Edmund A. Wash School of Foreign Service, and Georgetown Center for Strategic International Studies, all of which are the CIA's preserves of veterans Ed Ron and Jean Kirkpatrick. She is also director of Woodrow Wilson International Center and the Order of St. John's of Jerusalem. Thus, we find that Margaret T. Muse is a variable director of top secret CIA worldwide operations. Continue. The Tinker Foundation, like the Jacob Kablin Fund, is one of the super secret organizations which funds much of its money to the CIA for covert activities too bizarre to be submitted to any government operations center. The secretary of the Tinker Foundation is Random L. Brittenbaum, who was born in Moscow, educated at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin. He was general counsel for the ITT, whose German operations were headed by Baron Kurt von Schröder, personal banker to Adolf Hitler. Brittenbaum was senior vice president for law at ITT, Bell Telephone, Belgium International, Standard Electric, vice president of Standard Lawrence, German at Harvard, in Germany, that is, Lawrence, Germany, Harvard Law School, and partner of Lazar Ferris, investment banker since 1980. Director of Tinker Foundation is David Afshar. White House confidant on sensitive intelligence matters. He is chairman of American Enterprise Institute. That's another think tank. Secret policy group headed by Jean Kirkpatrick. And the Center for Strategic International Studies is another think tank. Afshar was U.S. ambassador to NATO in Brussels, which serves as world headquarters and command center for the Rothschild World Order. Afshar headed the Reagan transition team after Reagan election to the White House. He's also headed the National Security Group. He's on the administration board of the Naval War College, the President Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board, and the influential International Institute of Strategic Studies. Also director of Tinker Foundation is John N. Irwin II, educated at Oxford, partner of the Wall Street law firm David Polk Wardwell until he moved on to Patterson Belknap. Irwin has been Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, that is Internal Security, from 57 to 61. Under Secretary of State, Ambassador to France from 1970 to 1974. Irwin is a director of Morgan Guaranty Trust, IBM, and super secret 1925 F Street Club in Washington. Vice chairman of the Tinker Foundation is Grayson Kirk, president of University of Wisconsin, president emeritus of University of Chicago, advisor to IBM, director of Bullock Funds, Asian Foundation, the French Institute, Lycée Française, trustee of the Morgan Money Shares, High Income Shares, and the Hoover Front, the Belgium American Educational Foundation. Kirk is also a recipient of the Order of the British Empire, St. John of Jerusalem, and is commander of the Order of Orange Nassau. When Hoffman LaRouche made a strong bid for Sterling Drug in '87, his cause was advanced by Lewis Preston, head of the J.P. Morgan Empire. Who was also banker for Sterling Drugs. But let's be about his role caused his retirement from J.P. Morgan Company. Sterling was then bought out by Eastman Kodak through funding from the Rockefellers, Kodak Banks at Chase Lincoln First Bank, which is wholly owned by Chase Manhattan Bank. Kodak does $10 billion a year. He's chairman of C.K. Whitmore, who's director of Chase Manhattan Bank, Chase Manhattan National Corporation. Directors of Kodak are E. Anderson, former chairman of Continental Illinois Bank, until it threatened to go under from mismanagement. He's now with Amstack Industries, a $700 million steel corporation. Anderson is also the chairman of Chicago branch of the Council of Foreign Relations. Other directors of Kodak are Charles T. Duncan, dean of the Law School of Howard University, director of defense firm TRW, Procter & Gamble, and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. A 32nd degree Mason, Duncan has long been active in black affairs, listing himself as assistant to now Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall in the school's desegregation case before the Supreme Court, 53 to 55, Juanita Krebs is also director of Kodak. She was President Jimmy Carter's Secretary of Commerce. She is now director of RJR License, RJR Industries, and the New York Stock Exchange. She received the Stephen S. Wise Award. Also on the board of Sterling's are John G. Smelt, Chairman of Procter & Gamble, Director of General Motors, and Richard Mahoney, Chairman of Monsanto Chemical Company, which Monsanto is no longer. It's been bought out by Bayer. It's moved. I don't know if it's their plants are probably still here. It's been one of the companies that was hated by just about all Americans. That is Monsanto. He doesn't go in this because actually that just happened recently. Because they are active in similar chemical formations, the leading chemical firms are also closely interlocked with major drug producing firms. Richard Mahoney, director of Sterling Drugs, is chairman of Monsanto Chemical, a $7 billion a year firm. Mahoney claims he is seeking a 20% return on equity for Monsanto this year. He's also director of Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, also Centera Bancorp. G.D. Searle, president of Monsanto, is Earl H. Harbison Jr., who was with the CIA from 49 to 67. Wow. Harbison is chairman of G.D. Searle, also president of Mental Health Association, a red flag, and director of Bethesda General Hospital and the St. Louis Hospital. Director of Monsanto are Donald C. Carroll, Dean of Wharton School of Business, Richard I. Freak, who was General Counsel of the Ford Motor Company from 57 to 62, now Chairman of the National Life Insurance Company, Chairman of the Centeco Group Funds, Howard H. Love, Chairman of National Intergroup, formerly National Steel, Director of Trans World Corporation, which is out west in San Francisco, if that's correct. I don't know if they're still in business, and Hamilton Oil Corporation. Buck Micker, Construction Typhoon, Chairman of Daniels International Corporation, which does over $1 billion a year, Chairman of RSI, Chairman of the Duke Power Company, President of Floral Corporation, Vice Chairman of JP Stevens, which is now undergoing a takeover bid, Director of Seaboard Coastline Railroad. So I know who this guy, I don't know who this guy is, but I know some of the companies here. When it's Duke Power, that's the Duke Energy now in North Carolina and South Carolina, and I think in Florida. President of Floral Corporation is a major business building company. Vice Chairman of JP Stevens, which was probably one of the largest textile companies, basically based in a lot of it. It used to be in Virginia, some in North Carolina, and some in South Carolina. I don't know if it's still in business or not, which is now, and then also a takeover bid. And Director of Seaboard Coastline Railroad, which is no longer, is now the CSX, which means the S part was the Seaboard part. Seaboard was Seaboard Airlines at one time, which was a railroad, and then it bought out Atlantic Coastline Railroad, so they have they're both names in the railroad. Also, director of Monsanto is William G. Ruckenshaw, who was Deputy Attorney General of the United States and Assistant Attorney General in the Department of Justice Civil Department from 69 to 70. Administration of the EPA from 70 to 73. Served as Director of the FBI, Senior Vice President for Law of the Giant Weyerhaeuser Corporation. Director of U.S. West and Pacific Gas Transmission. Stansfield Turner, who was Director of the CIA from 77 to 81, was a Rhodes Scholar, President of the Naval War College, Commander-in-Chief of NATO and Second Fleet. C. Raymond Dahl, Chairman of Crown Zetterbach, Director of Bank of America. John W. Hanley, former Chairman of Monsanto, now Director of Citibank, that is Citicorp, and RGR Industries. Gene Meyer, son of the longtime Chairman of Lazare Paris, Andre Meyer. Gene Meyer was born in Paris and is director of many organizations dealing with population studies. He was special consultant to the President of the United States from 69 to 70 and has been president of Tufts University since 1976. He's director of UNICEF and WHO. John S. Reed, chairman of Citibank, director of Philip Morris, which is a tobacco company, United Technologies, Russell Sage Foundation, which is another private 501(c) deal, and Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. John B. Slaughter, director of General Dynamics, Naval Electronics Lab at San Diego, NSF Missile Spec, and Chancellor of the University of Maryland since 1982. He's active in a number of minority group organizations, Urban League, trustee Redazar Polytech Institute, Margaret Bush Wilson, and laureate of St. Louis, treasurer of the NAACP, and trustee of Washington University. The close connection of the chemical industry and the government intelligence is shown by the fact that Monsanto officers and directors include a CIA agent for 20 years. Another former director of the CIA, former director of the EPA and FBI, and an engineer with General Dynamics the nation's leading defense firm. See, this is how they get their bids, folks. This is how they make money. Another one, although DDT was outlawed in this country, Monsanto continues to make handsome profits by shipping it overseas, particularly to countries such as Latin America and Asia. The $11 billion a year Dow Chemical Corporation has directors including Carl Gerstacker, director of the Eaton Corporation. Cyrus Eaton was a protege of John D. Rockefeller, long involved in pro-Soviet activities as organizer of the Pugwash Conference, which was directed by the KGB. Paul F. McCracken, an economist for the Federal Reserve Bank of Minnesota from 43 to 48, professor of economics at the University of Michigan since 48. McCracken was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors from 1956 to 1971, and has served on the President Advisory Board of Economic Policy since 1981. Harold T. Shapiro, director of Alvin P. Sloan Foundation, another 501(c) group, which funds the Rockefeller-dominated Sloan Kettering Center. President of University of Michigan, director of Ford Motor, Burroughs and Kellogg. Shapiro has served on the CIA's panel since 1984. Although Dow was a family firm for many years, with Willard Dow as chairman and 3 Dows on the board of directors, they are now all gone. So they're dead. Of the Dow Industry Chemical Company. Moltencroft is another chemical firm long owned by one family. Is now a subsidiary of the International Minerals and Chemicals. There are no Moltencrofts on its board. Directors are Jeffrey Milbank, a very influential New York family. He's president of Milbank Fund, which is dominated in medicine research. He is also treasurer of the Robert A. Taft School of Government and vice president of the Boys Clubs of America, on which J. Edward Hoover served for many years. Warren L. Bates, BATT, president of Dark Industries, director of Mead Corporation, the First National Bank of Atlanta, Dark and Craft, and trustee of the American Enterprise Institute with Gene Kirkpatrick. Frank W. Constantine, chairman of the National Can Corporation. Louis Fernandez, director of the Tribune Company in Chicago. Encyclopedia Britannia, First Chicago National Bank, Alice Chandler, which used to be a tractor company. I think they're gone. And Loyola University, Paul R. Root Judy, co-chairman of Warburg's Paravis Becker, and director Robert Bush of North America, Roland C. Frazee, chairman of the Royal Bank of Canada, director of Power Corporation of Canada, McGill University, Portage Program for Drug Dependency. James W. Glanville was with the Lazar Faris, now Lehman Brothers, director of the Halliburton Corporation. You know who they are. Thomas H. Roberts Jr., chairman of DeKalb Ascocerts, leading producers of hybrid corn. Continental Illinois Bank, board of visitors at Harvard University, president of St. Louis Hospital, trust of Rush Medical College. Morgan Musking, lawyer with the Wall Street firm of White and Case, director of Crum and Forster. For years, Millicrom had a sweetheart deal with Memorial Hospital Sloan Kettering. One of the shadow figures now departed who exercised a considerable influence behind the scenes was the man who set up the deal, M. Frederick Smith, a longtime Rockefeller associate who was director at Millicrom and an indefatigable public relations man. Smith worked at Young and Rubicon, handled Bruce Burton's congressional campaign, and masterminded the Wiki bid for president. Smith served as assistant to the president at the Bretton Woods Conference and senior assistant to the Secretary of Treasury from 24 to 44, representing the Rockefeller interests there. He's also headed the public relations for Sloan Kettering Sanderson Center. Was the director of ABC. Simon Schuster handled public relations for the Book of the Month Club, and founded the United Nations Free World Association. DuPont is another firm which for years was controlled by the DuPont family. They now have few representatives on its board. Edward Bronfman now has 21% holding on its stock. Former director of DuPont was Donaldson Brown, who married Greta DuPont. He was director of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, General Motors Acceptance Corporation, and Gulf Oil. This $14 billion a year firm now has Andrew Bremer, former governor of the Federal Reserve Board and director. He serves as governor from 66 to 74. A longtime rival of DuPont is Imperial Chemical Industries of England. It was founded by Alfred Mann, who became Lord Melchett, Melchett, he formed an agreement with I.G. Farman during the 1920s, which allowed him to absorb British dyestuffs and Nobel Industries in 1926. His present chairman is Sir John Henry Harvard Jones, director of Barclays Bank, which is a British bank. President of ICI is the fourth Baron Lord Melchett Peter Mann, who finances the Greenpeace Environmental Trust, another 5103C group. Directors are Sir Robin Hibbs, the director of Lloyds Bank, which is another English bank, who serves as advisor to the Prime Minister. He is on the Council of the Port Royal Institute of International Affairs, the parent organization of our Council on Foreign Relations. Sir Alex A. Jarrett, who held many government offices from 49 to 70, including Minister of Power and Minister of State. He's now a department chairman of the Midland Bank and director of Thyssen Bromsgrove Group. Thyssen is I think it's a Danish company, but don't hold me to that. Sir maybe German. I might be wrong. Sir Patrick Meany, who's chairman of the Rank Corporation. I'm sorry, Rand organization, a movie-making firm which was set up by the British Secret Intelligence Service. And I'm going to take a break here, folks. I thought they were going to be dealing with what he was going to be dealing with was what I'll call all the drug companies. Well, we've gone through all the drug companies here, but I can't believe how long this chapter is. So I'm going to take a break. This has been an hour and 36 minutes, and I'm kind of pooped here. So thank you for listening. Murder by Injection by Chapter 9. It's not the conclusion of it. I was getting late here somewhat, plus I've been reading for over an hour and 36 minutes. So thank you for listening. Have a good night.